Now, I understand from Doc that today, speaking to us about the Compression Institute is going to be David Veech. So, David, where are you? If you'd come up here and begin to get your PowerPoint together, that would be wonderful. David is also a co-founder of the Compression Institute, and he is the director of finance. And his specialty, and this is a great specialty, is developing people, including executives. Imagine that. Executives are also people, to create the lean culture necessary. He is a retired U.S. Army officer and a veteran of the 1991 Gulf War. So while he's getting his PowerPoint up, help me give him a big rousing hand for coming and speaking with us today.
Thank you all. Thanks for allowing us to come and talk a little bit about the Compression Institute and vigorous learning organizations. And the thing I want you to think about with this is when we talk about organizations, we're talking about all kinds of organizations. It's easy for Doc and me and Jason, we kind of slip into this business mode and think about manufacturers and companies trying to make money. But it really is essential that all organizations recognize the need to develop something new to handle the challenges that we know are coming. Our big challenge for these guys first is to do better with less. You've all been challenged before to try to do more with less, right? And how does that go over? We end up with a whole lot of work and a lot of frustrated employees. And if we're going to try to develop employees a little bit more, we can't really tie them up and wear them out. So we've got to be able to do better with fewer resources. To be a little bit more specific, we've got a specific challenge that Doc has laid out. By 2040, we want to improve globally. We want to improve quality of life to a standard pretty much like what we have in industrial societies today, but using less than half of the virgin raw materials and less than half of the energy, as we did in the year 2000. Oh, and with no known toxic releases. So why do we lay out a challenge like this? Well, because we've got stuff going on. We've got a whole lot of stuff going on. The organizations are going to have to find their way through this mess. And we know that every organization is going to be able to, they're going to have to face these challenges differently. Everyone is going to have unique constraints and characteristics. And so rather than offer up specific solutions to each one of these types of challenges, what we want to do is we want to equip the organization to learn faster. And that's where we get the vigorous learning organization. We really need to change the way leaders think more than anything else. How do you think about the purpose of your organization and achieving that purpose with the limited resources that you have? And I think you all know that changing the way people think is not exactly the easiest thing to do, right? I mean, you've got years and years of thinking patterns dragging along. So we want to try to find ways to change the way leaders think. At the heart of this, we've kind of defined compression thinking, and we've played around with this triple bottom line thing, and we're learning and trying to figure this out and how it's going to work. Where should profit fit into all this, and where's the planet fit into all this, and should we be doing good stuff, and do you get the benefits of good stuff? There's all kinds of different things, but what we want to do is we really want to teach people to think more broadly. We want to reframe problems in a broader context. We want to think outside the box. Can I say that too? I hate that, but it's what we're looking to do. I mean, get out of your normal patterns of thinking and see what you can discover beyond that. So we've got all these different things that are kind of kicking in. We've learned a lot. There's nothing here that's really brand new kind of stuff. It's just we latch onto something quickly and we throw it away because it didn't work for us in this one case, and we go look for something else. So we want you to consistently think and use compression thinking to drive some of these things. With the Vigorous Learning Organization, there are several key components, and I'm going to go through these key components very quickly. This is kind of an amalgamation of 25, 50 years of best practices in different kinds of industries and things. So we're pulling this stuff together, and we've broken down these major chunks, but the thing you got to remember is the chunks by themselves just don't work by themselves. So it is an integral system that we have to make work. And we can't just latch on to one piece or another. So we've got MetaVision, which is the compression thinking piece. That sets common mission and goals. We build a rigorous learning system. We get some behavior for learning. And we run it all with servant leadership. So let me hit each one of these pretty quickly. MetaVision, I mentioned, was reframing those problems. Thinking beyond just your normal constraints trying to get a multiple perspective view at the current situation that you're in. We really kind of want to drive this so we can start beginning to understand the perspective of the effect our organization has on the world, rather than just whining about the effect the world has on our organization. And I think you'll agree that we whine a lot. So if we can just have that one little mindset shift and understand that it's not about what's happening to me, it's about what we're causing to happen to others, that I think is going to drive our ability to reset our common mission and goals. And in my experience, the thing that differentiates a mob from a team is having something to work forward to, having a common set of goals. And we're all familiar with sports teams, and my kids play soccer, and we love it. And that common mission and goals really pulls people together if they believe that it's for the common good. The other thing that pulls people together is crisis and tragedy. And we know that we've got some crises and tragedies coming. What can we do to kind of lay a foundation to make the best use of our assets when we do have those challenges? So that's what we're trying to get through with the mission and goals. The heart of this is the structure. We want to put in place a physical structure that changes the way people do things. And we think that rigorous learning system itself is going to be essential to reinforcing the lessons that people learn on an ongoing basis, shortening the time it takes people to learn, and then being able to respond more quickly to anything that might come up. That's the key to this thing. We've got one tool that we've kind of floated around about this. It's a problem-solving approach that we want to make sure allows us as diverse people to identify what the real problem facing the organization is. I mean, we've got these ill-defined problems that hit us all the time. We've got challenges, so we've got to do this, and nobody knows how to do this. So these kind of wicked problems that take wisdom to solve, we want to try to make more manageable through a standard process that we're teaching everybody and getting that brain power engaged from everybody. We call it the C4 process, and C4 to me is an old Army guy, is something used to blow things up. Sometimes it works fine, but what we want to do is we want to focus first on the concern. And this is just an evolution of Deming's PDCA cycle. So if we focus on the concern, the first thing we've got to understand is where this problem fits in the context of our operating environment. So we want to make sure we take a big picture look, and then we say, oh my God, this problem is huge, it's too hard to handle, what do we do? So there are techniques to break that problem down. Then you got to get the right people working on that problem. So it gives an organization the chance to get the right people in the room to take the next step to identify what's causing these problems, develop, evaluate, plan, and implement a couple of countermeasures, and then confirm that it worked. And we think that if we take this approach, this standard approach, doing the same type of things every time we have a problem, then we get some repetitious behaviors, then we get some learning, we can pile things on from what we've learned before, and hopefully have a positive impact on the organization. We also need an archiving system, so that we don't just learn these lessons, solve these problems, say, okay, well, that one's done, let's run on to the next one. And you know there's the next one waiting for you anyway, right? Nipping at your heels. We want to be able to catalog these things and reach into this knowledge base for the future when the problems perhaps come back in a different form, and use that to kind of keep on running. By having this standard approach and this repetitious behavior, we're going to change the way people look at their opportunities at work. I want people to actively seek opportunities and problems rather than find ways to hide problems and so we don't get blamed for it. So the behavior we're looking for is very entrepreneurial behavior from everybody in every organization. Now, I think that stems a lot from this concept of self-efficacy. Where's that? There we go. Must have hit the wrong button. Self-efficacy is it's a type of confidence. It's kind of task-specific. People with high self-efficacy do some pretty cool things. They take action to improve their workspace. They try new things. And the coolest thing that people with high self-efficacy do is they persist. When they fail, they try it again. They try it again. They try it again. And they try it until they make it work. Now tell me that those three things aren't three extremely valuable characteristics to have in employees or volunteers or soldiers or anything. So how do we cultivate that? Doc asked me to focus a little bit about behavior. And so I've given some thought to this. Just like every behavior starts with a thought. We think a thought, we do something, we have some consequences. They might be positive, they might be negative, and hopefully that consequence has an impact on the way we think about doing it the next time. In this cycle, the only place that we externally can affect change is in the action and in the consequences. I can change the structure and make you do something different. And I can put in place some kind of beautiful reward or some stinging punishment as a consequence, but I'm not going to change the way you think. You have to experience that yourself. Now, when I start changing your world to change your behavior to hopefully change the way you think, how are you going to respond to that? I mean, we're comfortable. We're comfortable people. So the first thing I'm going to do is push back hard. And wailing and gnashing of teeth, weeping and violent uprisings, all kinds of crazy stuff as we start resisting this threat to our comfort zone. If we can, as leaders, persist in enforcing the new set of rules and in building the relationships that are required to ask these folks to keep on trying it, try it again, try it again, try it again, then we can get them to acknowledge that there is something better maybe down the road, accept the change, and eventually become advocates of the change. When they become the advocate, then that's a new mindset. And after about 18 months, you'll have the same problem if you want to change something else, because we kind of lock this stuff back in internally, don't we? So I was always surprised to see how quickly we get to the point where we say we've always done it that way. To get through this slop takes a certain type of leadership. And so servant leadership is what we've identified as the servant leadership. Okay. You go from a Mac to a PC, what do you expect? All right. We think servant leadership is, we don't necessarily like the term servant leadership because it kind of implies this kind of meekness and this humility. And a lot of people think servant leaders are the kind of guys who you can wipe your feet on. And that's not true. What we think a servant leadership brings to the table is courage, moral courage. Moral courage is really based, more than anything else, on authority. How do we get that authority? Well, authority kind of flows from will. A will being that intention to act, taking your time to set the course. This becomes our mission. This becomes our set of goals. So that will is our willingness to stand for something and to set a course. And then, who comes next is the people. And I want to throw up a word here that you don't see too many times in businesses and things. I think the only way to describe the collective set of behaviors that leaders need to bring to the table for our people is love. And when you love someone, we want to try to take care of those folks, right? If we accept our responsibility as leaders to develop people's skills, if we accept the obligation to challenge them to new heights, to encourage them, to correct them, to enforce the accountability, those are all loving behaviors. Love is not emotional. I mean, we get all kinds of emotions as a result of this decision we make to love somebody, don't we? So the love decision drives leaders to put others' needs above their own. So it puts them in the sacrifice mode. So we've got our mission first. We've got our troops next in the military example with the picture. Then I've got the leader, me. And then what I'm after is the truth. And that truth is the result of authority. If I'm operating from a position of truth, then you can challenge all you want. I'm still in the strong position. And I can lead with authority instead of power. We've got a few tools in here, a few concepts in here. when Doc has told me thousands of stories about lean, and one of the things that we want to be really careful with as we try to deploy this VLO thinking is don't latch on to one of the tools. Okay, don't latch on to the C4 and think that's going to do the trick for you. This is an integral system. If you latch on to one piece and make it work really well, other pieces are going to suffer. So we've got to understand that this is all part of a larger context, part of a larger system. And what we've done to kind of drive this to get started is we've set a mission for the Compression Institute that involves creating and supporting these thinking groups or learning groups or really mini VLOs to try to deploy this throughout, to drive these kinds of changes in organizations around the world. You can find out more about that at the website. We would encourage you to visit. We would encourage you to contact somebody about starting up a little learning group in your own community. And thank you for listening.
No, you can't hide real quick. I thought that was an excellent discussion going right to point number 10 I made about leadership. Please.
I missed the point about compression. What is compression having to do with the pace of things today or globalization or what? I'm not sure I understand compression thinking, so please say some more.
Compression implies making things smaller. For 5,000 years, success has meant getting bigger, growing, consuming more, buying more, selling more. What happens when the resources to do that are gone? So how can we have some degree of success by being smaller, by compressing our operations? So we're going to talk about compressing footprints. We're going to talk about compressing what I like to refer to as the skid marks instead of footprints, okay, so we don't leave too much behind. But we also want to compress learning cycles. If I can get you to learn faster in the face of some critical challenge, if the organization can be more nimble and adaptable, if people can be more resilient, then we can have less of a negative impact as these challenges hit us. And if the challenges don't hit us, then we've got the foundation laid to drive continuous improvement and have goals that say, well, let's continue to reduce the number of resources that we use. Let's continue to reduce the number of energy required. How much money can we save as a result of that? I mean, we whine a lot about regulations and complying with regulations and the cost of complying with regulations. And I think you all will agree that in today's political climate, we are not going to get the regulations we need to stem the tide of some of the things that are coming. So instead of spending millions of dollars on your lobbying budget, why don't you redirect that to your improvement budget? Start making things better so you use less stuff and lose less stuff, and see what we can create with a positive spin.
Okay. I've got a quicker definition of compression, which is much simpler, and that is, throughout human history, we have been encouraged to multiply and grow, and growth and expansion has been the basis of our economies, and there's been a reason for that, because too small a population fails. However, that's not an issue for us anymore, and instead of continuing to expand, we need to stop the expansion and think about going the other way, and the other way is compression, and that's the succinct way of dealing with that. And it's a good lead-in.
Real quick, after close to 50 years in this racket, the vast majority of the technical software that's been developed and implemented was simply to automate existing procedures, the electronic drafting board type of approach. My observation has been the most successful organizations are the ones that took a step back and said, how do we restructure our business, taking advantage of the technical tools that are available, rather than just trying to force the technical tools to do what we've always done faster. Not necessarily better, but at least faster or cheaper.
Okay,